biggest change that I am proud of when it comes to the Army is the fact of not just recognizing equal opportunity, but also wanting to dive deeper into diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Welcome to the BLUF podcast, where you get the bottom line up front and we won't waste your time.
Hey, podcast listeners, welcome back to another episode of the BLUF Line. Again, I am your host, Command Sergeant Major Juan Jimenez, coming to you out of Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Again, it's my pleasure to bring another special guest onto the show like we have in the past. But before I hand the mic over to Master Sergeant Paxton, I'd just like to say, like always, if you have any information or if you want to hear any information on our show, by all means, reach out to me to juan.p.jimenez.mil@mail.mil so we can either answer some of your questions you might have, bring some special guests that you might be interested in listening to, and by all means, any other things that you'd like to hear about or ensure that gets pushed out. You know, again, this is another way to communicate out and make sure our voices are being heard and just push out information that might be relevant to our listeners out there that might be wanting to pick up on some things out there. And again, it goes out wide. So by all means, it doesn't matter if you're stationed here at Redstone or not. If you want to hear something, by all means, shoot me a little message and we can get that out to you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my special guest and give her an opportunity to kind of introduce herself and let her say what she does and where she's from. So by all means, Master Sergeant Paxton, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Sergeant Major. I am, as you said, Master Sergeant Elaina Paxton. I've been assigned to the Army Materiel Command here at Redstone for almost a year. I am assigned as the Military Equal Opportunity Advisor and Program Manager for AMC, but I also support the installation as well.
That is awesome. You know what? When you say AMC, you're talking about Army Materiel Command here on the installation, and they reach out so far, and I know you play a big role in ensuring that as an equal opportunity advisor, we are pushing out the latest and greatest, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Before we go deep into what you do as an equal opportunity advisor, can you tell the audience a little bit about your background and where you come from?
Well, I am from Miami, Florida. I love that place. I love going back home to visit my family, which the majority is still there. I am married and I have a 3-year-old son. I've been serving in the Army for 20 years now, and I was recently promoted to Master Sergeant on 1 January. A proud accomplishment for me. I've worked hard serving my country and serving the organizations that I've been assigned to. I will say that I'm a 42 Alpha, a human resource sergeant, and I love what I do in the Army. I love that job.
That is awesome. And I would tell you that I love doing what I do in the Army as well. I think I don't know if I would have invested that many years in if I didn't love what I was doing. And congratulations on your promotion, and congratulations on 20 years of service. I mean, that's a great accomplishment. And a lot of times people might not know and understand how hard that path is to get where you're at and what it takes. And it's really hard work at what it takes. Moving on to a little bit of what you do here on Redstone Arsenal. I mean, as a equal opportunity advisor, can you talk to some people about what you do?
So what I do is I am the eyes and the ears for the commander in regards to equal opportunity. That's for service members and their families as well. The Army regulation recently just changed. So now we also manage or monitor harassment, which includes hazing and bullying, online misconduct, and other forms of discriminatory harassment. The sexual harassment portion has been moved into sexual harassment and assault response program, and they actually manage the complaints that may come from that. So the Army did a wise thing by actually segregating that portion and making that lane specifically for SHARP.
That is awesome. And you know what, I think knowing and understanding that aspect of it, it just allows the environment and the workforce to operate better and to ensure that everybody knows that that type of stuff is not tolerated
At all.
Right. I mean, and to me, it kind of We talked a little bit about the golden rule at one time, and it really kind of goes back to the golden rule and treating others as you would want to be treated. And I think you kind of hold that line as an equal opportunity advisor for AMC and our installation.
Yes. So I like to say treat others. We say treat others as they should be treated, when it's actually treat others as they should be treated, and that's always with dignity and respect.
Yes, outstanding. Dignity and respect is very important. And as we go along and talk about it, different places that we've been stationed at. I know you've probably been stationed in several places, and sometimes as non-commissioned officers, we are, we always say that we are a censor out there for everything. And if you see something, say something, right? What would you tell NCOs out there, young officers? I mean, you name it. Even our civilian employee, if they were to come across something like this, what should they do?
I believe silence means complicity. So even if an individual is uncomfortable with approaching an individual directly, that doesn't mean that there are not avenues or different means that they can let someone know. The Army actually just also implemented, in terms of making a complaint, we have the opportunity and or ability to make anonymous complaints now in regards to discrimination and harassment. So not only can you make an anonymous complaint, can be formal and informal. And if the complaint is advanced or directed to be a formal complaint, and that individual does not want to be known, the commander then is identified as the subject.
Outstanding. So in saying that, are people obligated to say something?
My thoughts are yes. We
I'm
are
with you.
obligated
Yeah.
to say something.
Right. I mean, as leaders, right? I mean, we're leaders of an organization. We're leaders, squad leader on up, no matter what, or platoon leader on up. If you're, I think you should be obligated to say something. If or else, like you said, silence means that you're kind of saying it's okay, and it's not okay if you're starting to see these things, right?
So when we think about obligation and saying something and or speaking up, the first Army value that I always associate that with is personal courage. So if we are following the 7 Army values and we truly believe that and hold true to that, then personal courage would be used in that time.
Right. So I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you is why you decided to join the Army. But from when you joined the Army to now, right, did you ever see yourself doing what you're doing now?
No, I did not.
Right.
So joining the Army
Right.
was, I won't say a last resort, but it wasn't a resort for me at all.
Right.
It was never an option that I had considered. I had no plan leaving high school, and I was in JRTC for 3 years. I took the ASVAB. Recruiter came to my house, spoke with my mother, and from the minute I walked in the door after that meeting, she pretty much obligated me herself and told me, "You are joining the Army." And I will have to say that joining the Army has been one of the best decisions of my life.
Well, that's awesome, and that's good to hear when we talk about leaders, when we talk about all walks of life. I mean, you name it, someone out there may be going or listening to this saying, I mean, is it an option for me, or not? And by your story, I mean, you may convince someone to say, maybe let me explore a career in the Army or in the service. If you were to talk to somebody out there that's a young graduate out of high school thinking about what I should do, putting yourself back in that position, what do you think you would tell them?
I actually have spoken with individuals, my nieces and nephews to be exact, and they have no plan and or did not have a plan. So I always remind them that I'm not going to pressure you to join, but I will, say, take a look at my life. I can be an example for you, and, you can benefit from it as much as you would like to. And just signing up and serving maybe 4 years does not mean forever, but it will give you an opportunity to do some things that you may want to do, like go to college. And Sergeant Major, I just recently had the opportunity to actually mentor a woman who is about 28 years old, who already knew she wanted to join the military service. And so she asked me a bunch of questions. I gave her the aspect that I could from a military enlisted standpoint,
Right.
as well as some of her options if she wanted to become an officer, because she already has a degree, a master's degree to be exact.
Right.
And, she was adamant about joining, did PT with her, gave her some workout plans, helped her with her meal planning. She lost the weight.
Right.
She's actually serving in basic training right now at Fort Jackson.
Well, that's a great story to tell our audience and know and understand that, as leaders in the Army, especially non-commissioned officers, that we reach out to so many people, and sometimes we don't even realize that we do that, right? We just go about our business and being professional at what we do, as you talk, as we hold the creed of the non-commissioned officer up, and no one is more professional than I, and we continue to conduct ourselves in that way, in that manner, that it starts to become infectious with other people, right? And they were like, what do I got to do to be, a team member like you? You know what I mean?
Right.
I would ask you, now that you've got 20 plus years, you're a Master Sergeant in the United States Army, what is the most interesting thing or most highlight that you would want to leave your mark on as either a non-commissioned officer in the Army or as an equal opportunity advisor, or both? I mean, what's the mark that you want to leave, or your legacy you want to leave?
So I would say for my legacy as an NCO period would be to be a servant leader. I want to empower individuals, and I want to mentor. And I've done that so far in my career. While I've only had a few times to actually lead soldiers, I've done some great things in the
Right.
Army that didn't always allow me to have soldiers. But when I did get that opportunity, I will say what I did was stop first, think about my leadership style, and then think about who it is, or who they were as people. And I always like to use this, and this is something I learned and I hold dear to me. I always want to see my soldiers as people first. They're human.
Right.
Second, as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and then as a soldier in the United States Army. And I think just taking that step back and realizing that they are someone who matters, and getting to know them, their background, what they're capable of, where they may need help, has allowed me to be a successful NCO. In the fact where, one, I still mentor
Right.
soldiers who I've led. They are
Right.
still calling me now,
Right.
which I actually appreciate, and that attests to me as a good leader.
Right. And the beauty of that is when, like you talked about, when you get a soldier to reach out to you, and I mean, you're not even at that duty station anymore, or that location for some advice or some mentorship. I mean, it allows you to reflect on the impact you left behind from your other past duty stations. And it's a great feeling to know and understand that you've left a little mark. And that's what we do as non-commissioned officers and it goes back to our motto when I was at the Sergeant's Major Academy, and it was lead, learn, and inspire. And that's what we do. We continue to lead. We have to learn ourselves, and we continue to push out and inspire others. And I hope, and this is what this podcast is for, is to allow non-commissioned officers to reach out, to allow other workforce members to reach out to people that might be listening to our podcast and wanting to hear somebody like Master Sergeant Paxton say something on what her aspects are on coming into the Army, and what the accomplishments that you've done, that there is possibilities out there, I would like to see, I mean, as we've, you've spent 20 years in the Army. I'm about to hit 28 years in the Army. We've gone through so many changes in the Army, and we learn and adapt through them. And, change is good. Sometimes it keeps us going. It keeps us learning. It allows to build in flexibility and adaptability in our leadership styles, and just see if there's anything under this new AR 670-1 that came out that talks a little bit about some changes, right? Some of the changes that came out, and maybe get a little aspect on your take on it, is female soldiers are authorized to wear multiple neat in appearance hairstyles, at once. And see your take on, is that a good change?
I think that's a great change.
Right.
Everything within limits.
Mm-hmm.
We are an organization, and we know we are a uniforms organization.
Right.
And so when we sign on and we make that oath to serve under this organization, we know that some things we won't be able to do as uniquely or as independent as we would like. However, there are some things that should give individuals the opportunity to be themselves and to fall within the guidelines and or standards, but still have some type of diversification when it comes to representing who they are.
No, that's true. I mean, and when we talk about, female soldiers may wear non-extreme shades of lipstick. Female soldiers may wear stud earrings now while in the Army combat uniform. I think those are some small changes, but it allows, like you said, a little bit of identity, even though, we're structured Army and we wear the same uniform and you wear the patches from your unit and, everything's kind of structured. This allows some identity of individuals. Again, I just want to say, thank you so much for taking the time to come and be on the podcast. I think listeners out there really appreciate the fact that, one, I'm able to bring a female Master Sergeant of the United States Army on to talk a little bit about your background, some leadership styles of where you came from and just what you do for us in the Army. I think it's great. And what I'd like to do before we close out is give you an opportunity to say anything you might want to say before we close.
I want to say, one, thank you, Sergeant Major, and for giving me this opportunity and inviting me. I was actually quite surprised, but thank you so very much, because it actually gives me a voice and it recognizes me as an individual person, as the Equal Opportunity Advisor for AMC, and as a soldier and leader serving in the United States Army. So I do appreciate that. I will say that I believe in the Army, and as you stated, we have been through many, many changes from, I think I'm on my third PT uniform,
right.
my third combat uniform, going into my third dress uniform.
Yeah, right.
So we have seen the Army make continuous changes, but the biggest change that I am proud of when it comes to the Army is the fact of not just recognizing equal opportunity, but also wanting to dive deeper into diversity, equity, and inclusion. If a short person has one box and still can't see over the fence, then they need two boxes to be standing next to the individual who's 6 feet. Right. That diversity showing that I am a single person. I come from this background. I have my own characteristics, my own abilities, my own talent that I bring to this team, and together we make this whole organization whole, and just include in those diverse things, include in those talents, so that we can get the mission accomplished at probably even better than it would have been had I only focused on this one group of people. Right. So I'm proud of the Army and that change that they have identified and that they are making steps towards changing.
No, I totally agree with you. And I would tell you that from the moment I joined the Army, I think the Army and services in general have been the front runners to learn to adapt, to work with a diverse group of people, because it's been happening, since, well, for me, when I joined the Army back then, we've worked with females, we've worked with different backgrounds. I mean, you name it, we've done it, and we've been able to come together, accomplish the mission. At the core of everything, we're all soldiers and we're all sworn in to do something. That's to defend the United States and its Constitution. And we will do that. And allowing some diversity and allowing change, it makes it that much better. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And maybe we look forward to getting you on later on for another episode.
Sure. Maybe I'll bring some guests.
There you go. And thank you so much to our listeners out there. And by all means, like I talked about before, send in some information that you might want to hear, or drop me a line on some issues that you want us to talk about. Again, this is the BLUF line. Sergeant Major signing off. Thank you.